My grandmother was kidnapped by German soldiers from the Ukraine when she was pregnant with my mother.
Wow.
And she was born in Bergen-Belsen. And my grandmother made amazing sugar cookies, and that's why Hitler moved them to Hamburg.
No kidding.
So my grandmother made sugar cookies for Hitler.
This is episode 21 of 1F Jeff.
The number 21 has long been linked to completion, maturity, and transformation. In numerology, it reduces to 3, a number of creativity, expression, and the realization of ideas. Historically, turning 21 has symbolized reaching full adulthood and independence, the point where preparation gives way to personal freedom and responsibility. In the tarot, 21 corresponds to the World card, representing fulfillment, unity, and the successful completion of a life cycle before a new one begins.
Hello, my friends. Jeff Taylor here. And yes, here we are, episode 21. Good Lord. It's Friday afternoon here in Columbus, Ohio. It's late fall. Halloween is approaching. I don't know that I'm going to dress up. I think I'm just going to wear, I have a purple wig and a white crazy person wig that I kind of rotate through every other year. I'm not sure what kind of year this is going to be. I think I'll just feel the vibe out on the night of, see how that goes. I might have some strange glasses as well, but there's no concept like that. People say, who are you? Post about, I don't know, a guy wearing a wig and glasses. This entire episode was recorded in Colorado, and it is, as has been requested, mostly me rambling. So those of you who requested this kind of an episode, you're welcome. I hope you get what you asked for. I hope you feel good about it. I hope you don't get halfway through and say, I wish I hadn't asked for this. This is not going well for me. I don't feel good. I wish I could turn off this episode, but I just can't stop listening. But I do have regret about asking him to do this. And if that's the case, please email me at onefjeffpod@gmail.com, because frankly, I don't get many emails there, and it would really bring me joy and give me some feedback. I really enjoy getting feedback. I think I thrive with feedback. So send me feedback at onefjeffpod@gmail.com. Patreon subscribers, I still love you. Thank you so much for the new ones and the old ones and the ones in between. And if you yourself are not a Patreon subscriber and you'd like to support the podcast, please go to patreon.com/1fjeff. That's patreon.com/1fjeff. That's little as $5 a month, which is nothing. And if it is something to you, then I'm very, very sorry. That's all. I'm not going to ramble too much in the intro because the entire episode is ramble. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Here's me in a cabin in Salida, Colorado. I'm in Salida, Colorado once again at my friend March's cabin. I am here in part because I'm going to be on Tangentially Speaking, Chris Ryan's podcast the day after tomorrow, which is a fairly, it's a legit podcast and has a big audience. And who knows? Who knows? I'm honored to be asked to be on, so I wanted to take advantage of that offer. I'd be a fool not to. This is almost free, this trip, because I bought the ticket with the miles, and my wonderful friend March picked me up at the Denver airport and drove me back to her place in Colorado Springs, and then let me borrow her truck to drive out to her cabin out here in Salida. And I love it out here. It's just remote and peaceful, and there's a hot tub. And it's up in the mountains near Monarch Mountain Ski Resort, if anybody familiar, very close to there. So if anybody needs a place to stay when they go to Monarch Mountain, just let me know. I'll talk to March. Anyway, I'm feeling very grateful this evening to be living this life and to have such wonderful people in my life to help me live a life like this. It's a blessing, and there's no other way to say it. So I'm also drinking an IPA that has, yuzu fruit. What does it say here? Hold on. Yeah, it says with yuzu fruit. I don't know what that means. It sounds Japanese, and there's Japanese text on it, so I'm assuming yuzu fruit is probably some sort of a fancy Japanese fruit. It tastes good. It doesn't taste like fruit. So, good story, Jeff. And there's a wind. There's a decent breeze here, as maybe you can hear. It's somewhat close to the highway, to Route 50, and you can hear the traffic going by now and again. The drive out here was a little bit rough. March's truck is a stick shift, and I've driven stick, it's just been a while. And I left a little too late, so I was driving in the dark through the mountain passes, and it was a little bit, it was full attention driving, which is exhausting. But I made it, and yeah. And I'm feeling grateful and good, and I'm just trying to embrace this moment right here. Sitting on the porch here in the mountains of Colorado. Yeah. This is okay. Drinking a IPA with yuzu fruit, so how much better can it get? I'm thinking about how about a month ago when I got back from my trip, how I was quite depressed. And you hear the wind? Yeah. I was really depressed. I was in a bad place. And then I got sick and I was in even a worse place. And the whole time I was in the bad place, I thought, it's going to get better. It's waves, right? It's waves on the ocean. Just got to wait until I get on top of the next wave, and because it'll come. And here we are. Here I am. I feel like this is kind of the top. And when you realize you're there, you got to embrace it. You got to hold on to it. You got to appreciate it. So, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what we should all be trying to do at all times, but the world does not make that easy. I realize there are Buddhists now, but I wonder, and they were kind of inventing the religion or whatever, whatever they do. I don't know how it came to be. I'm not a Buddhist scholar. In case you thought I was, because some people just assume. If they imagined, when they were coming up with this religion, if they imagined the amount of distraction that would enter the world, if they anticipated this kind of a world, which it makes it much more tricky to, live in the moment and appreciate the moment, the present moment, and not think about the future or the past. These things make it very difficult, which is why I think it's probably more important than ever, right? I think I'm going to make this next episode another travelogue, just to mix it up. I keep trying to balance how much work and effort I put into the podcast versus how much effort I put into finding a job. And I realize that sounds like a ridiculous question probably to you, because of course I should be looking for a job. How irresponsible. But I don't know. I don't know that this is a bad decision. I think this is the exactly right decision, to be perfectly honest. I still have some money, so I have these opportunities. Why on earth shouldn't I take advantage of them? And this has been a year of that. And, when I was working at the Lincoln Project, I had so much free time because it was a fairly low-pressure job a lot of times. And I kept thinking I should be working remotely. I should be going to somewhere, and working there and then trying to take advantage of this. And then I did. I booked an Airbnb in Mexico City for February, and I was like, I'll work abroad for a month in Mexico City. And then I got laid off in the end of January. So I just went to Mexico City anyway and had a better time than I would have had I been working. And then I came back, and then I started this podcast. And then I went to Ireland with my family for a couple weeks. And I came back. A couple weeks after that, I started the road trip for 49 days. Got back from that. And now I'm in Salida, Colorado. And I'm going to go on a podcast that I've always wanted to be on, but never ever thought I would actually get to be on. So you hear that's the hot tub in the background. Can you hear that? It kind of drives me a little crazy. Look at me. Suddenly, there goes the living in the moment, appreciating the moment. There goes my negative brain right there. annoyed by the sound of the hot tub. I'm literally living like my best life right here, and I found a thing to be. All right, I take it back. Today we went on a hike in Garden of the Gods in Colorado Springs, which is like this, it's this park. It's not like a national park or anything, but it very well could be. But it's not. It's just a park that apparently some rich people basically owned the land and just gave it to the city and said it just has to be free forever. So that's pretty cool. So it's this amazing park with these giant red stones that stick out of the ground in these really weird shapes. There's like little window shapes. It's hard to describe, but these massive red stones. I need to look up like what that's about, because I was wondering how that happened, like how the whole thing, evolutionarily or whatever the word is, how it happened.
The geology of Garden of the Gods dates back around 300 million years, when ancient sedimentary layers were deposited in a vast inland sea. Over time, tectonic forces associated with the uplift of the Rocky Mountains tilted these horizontal rock beds vertically, exposing the dramatic formations seen today. The park's striking red, pink, and white rocks, mainly composed of sandstone, limestone, and conglomerate, belong to formations like the Fountain Formation, Lion Sandstone, and Dakota Sandstone. Erosion by wind and water then sculpted these layers into the towering fins, spires, and balanced rocks that define the landscape.
It's amazing. There's like little areas where you can see through, like there's a gap in the stone where you can see through. It looks like some of them are going to fall over on you. And maybe someday they will. I mean, someday they will. Of course they will someday, but not tomorrow, hopefully, or the next day. Will the stones outlive America? I guess that's a good question, right? Will the stones be there after America's gone? Most of them will, I imagine. Some of them will not. I missed the aspens, the yellow aspens. I missed those by a couple weeks, apparently. That's what March said. Which is a bummer. I think I've seen them before, but like when you're here in Colorado in the fall for a week or two, the aspen leaves just all turn yellow. And so the forest is just like this. It just becomes alive with yellow. Not everywhere, but certain places. And it's just incredible. And I wouldn't be able to say that had I not seen it. So I must have seen it at some point. I just don't remember when. Either that or I'm just lying. Or maybe I saw a picture of it. No, I think I experienced it. I mean, I have seen pictures of it as well. I mean, I saw a picture of it recently. So who knows how that... I mean, I did have some weird dreams last night, so who knows what's going on. Who knows what's going on? It's Monday, October something. Turns out that not all the aspen leaves have fallen from the trees. I woke up to quite a lot of beautiful yellow leaves still hanging on for dear life to the trees, in spite of the extremely windy conditions we have here today. I went for a walk today and actually saw some snow. And I was like, wow, it already snowed here. I mean, of course it did. It's like we're at 9,000 feet. Which, if I'm kind of panting as I talk, I apologize. It's the elevation again. Today, I am thinking about how I'm still not exactly sure what this podcast is or what I want it to be. And like I said, it's a difficult time. It's difficult to know what to focus on right now. I mean, I know I should be focusing on finding a job, and I am. But I also want this podcast to be good, And it's turned into, since I got back from the trip, a lot of interviews back into the conversation format, right? But that's not all I wanted it to be. Originally, I don't even think I wanted it to be that. And I think part of that is, honestly, laziness, because it's easier to edit an interview episode than it is for me to put together one of these. People say that they want to hear me talking more. Not that I'm basing my podcast on what people tell me they like, but I mean, in a way, it's unavoidable. I do want to give people what they want. And I do like to talk, so, that works. But I also want it to be kind of weird and, kind of like the first, intro episode kind of felt. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. Or don't, because then you might be confused as to how it's, whatever. Maybe it is still weird. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. In fact, I'm sure I am. This is what I do. This is what I'm trying to do less of. Anyway, My interview is tomorrow at about 9 or 9:30. It's about an hour and 10-minute drive from here to Crestone. And I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous. Most of the time when he has people on, it's like, this person wrote this book, or this person is biking across the country, or this person is doing this. I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing a lot of things, I suppose, but like what in particular it is about me that caused him to ask me to be on his podcast. Because it's hard to see the label when you're inside the jar. So I guess I don't know what the label is, if there is a label at all. And yes, that is my favorite saying of the moment. It's hard to see the label when you're inside the jar. It says so much in such a simple way. I had trouble sleeping last night. I think it's largely due to the adjusting to the elevation. Your heart beats faster to make up for the lack of oxygen in the air, or the less oxygen, the lower amount of oxygen, whatever, in the air. So yeah, my heart was beating, and I had 2 beers, which really, really got on top of me. Probably not the best idea, but what's regret? Pointless. I did ask Chris Ryan, the guy who's interviewing me tomorrow, I asked him if there's anything in particular that he was planning to talk about or he wanted to talk about tomorrow. And he said, nope. So in a way, that's great because that's what I do on my podcast for the most part. But it's also a little bit like, it has me thinking about what's been interesting about my 51 years on this planet. What have been the interesting events? What have been the interesting stories and so forth? And trying to remember them, right? So I can have them at the ready to talk about tomorrow. Because I don't want to be prepared, but I want to be prepared, So I went for a walk. Very beautiful out here, kind of in a valley surrounded by mountains on both sides. A lot of like rental cabins around here. A few little mountain streams flowing through. I love the mountains. I'd like to live in the mountains, I think. Maybe someday. Who knows? It's really nice being here alone in this cabin with the silence, except for the sound of the wind sometimes against the windows. Feels like I'm kind of away from the world in a way. And I like that feeling. I like the feeling of being outside of my quote-unquote normal life. I mean, I think everybody does to a degree, but I feel like I thrive in it, This feeling of not being surrounded by my stuff and all the emotional baggage and so forth that comes with all your stuff. All the books that I haven't read. All the records that I rarely listen to, even though I paid for them, and in which I'm now trying to sell. All the boxes of things that I've put in the attic that have been there since the last time I moved, and which I need to ask myself, why am I just moving these from place to place and putting them in storage? What am I holding on to here? A few months ago, it was a while back. It was earlier this year when I got back from Mexico. I was feeling very much like I wanted to downsize my life. I started to get rid of things and throw things away. And some of the things that I threw away, I had these old videotapes when I was making films back in the day, or when I made films back in the day. And you got them into festivals. You have to make a screener copy, which at the time was like, there were many different formats of like Super VHS or DV, I forget the names of them all, but there were all these ridiculous different kinds of formats that every festival accepted a different format of tape. And so you had to spend a lot of money to get your film put on one of these expensive tapes for the festival to use as the screener. And so I'd kept these for some reason, because they send them back to you after the festival's over. And I kept these in a box, thinking these were like some sort of like memento of my success, as a filmmaker. But all they're doing is sitting in a box. So I threw them away. And I remember when I told some people that I threw them away, they're like, really? Why would you do that? And I thought, like, why wouldn't I do that? Like, it felt good to get rid of them. I took pictures of them, the Marie Kondo method, as it were, and then I threw them away. And it made me feel lighter. And it also made me think, 2 less things to move next time I move, which is hopefully soon, because my landlord, I don't think I've talked about this, I live in a side-by-side duplex, and my landlord lives next door to me. And when I moved into the house I guess it was about 4 years ago now, good Lord, I was not in a good place. I didn't have a lot of friends at the time. It was right after COVID kind of was starting to settle down, or as COVID was settling down. And I had gone through a breakup earlier that year, and I was just kind of feeling disconnected. And the landlord really wanted to be friends, so we hung out quite a bit, drinking on the porch, you know. And I got, indications that he was a bit of a strange guy from time to time. And then they kept getting more and more, like boundaries started to get strange. I don't want to get into all the details, but like, he would always say, I don't want to be thought of as your landlord. I want to be thought of as like your friend. And I would think, yeah, but you are my landlord. And it's weird that you would say that. Like, I understand it. But now looking back, it's like he wanted me to be both his tenant and his friend. The relationship kind of started to fracture. I don't remember what the real fracture was, but I have to look back. And so at a certain point, I had to like send him a text message that was like, this is about 3 years ago, I think, that was like, hey, I'd like our relationship to be a tenant-landlord relationship exclusively. I hope you can respect this boundary. And he responded, ha ha. And I was like, oh, that's not great. It's not a good sign. And it wasn't a good sign. It was foreboding. Long story short, for the last several years, he has continued to try to engage me as more than a tenant. And when I've asked for him to like fix simple things like just replacing a fire alarm, it turns into an entire thing of him trying to engage with me in the process. Like, I would think that a normal landlord would just be like, sure, I'll replace that. Let me, no problem. I'll drop it off tomorrow, whatever. With him, it turns into a whole big thing of like, you can just replace the battery. And I'd be like, no, you have to replace the whole alarm. It's that kind of alarm, blah, blah, blah. It was ridiculous. There's a lot of things like this that happened. And still, he would try. I would never give him any indication that I was like interested in being his friend anymore. Like I had it. I wasn't responding to his texts. I wasn't responding to his invitations, whatever. I wasn't responding to any of it because I realized I couldn't. Because to give an inch, he'll take a mile, right? I mean, this went on. And then even when I was on my road trip, he was texting me. He texted me 4 or 5 times saying, where are you? Blah, 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 on and on. I never responded. And then at one point he texted me, is there somebody in your house? I heard something over there. And I was like, uh-oh. So I texted my friend who was taking care of my plants and asked him if he was over there, and he said no. And then I texted back. I had to ask. I was like, well, no, nobody's in my house. Is everything okay? And then he writes back, oh, it must have just been the storm. Where are you? And a lot of people, when you hear this story, you think, oh, he just wants to be your friend. Don't be so mean. You don't understand. And as evidence of this, when my friend Brad, he took care of my plants a couple times when I was out of town this year, he had to interact with a few times because he was sitting on the porch smoking, and would just complain to him about how I didn't want him to take my Amazon packages into the house for him, or, just negative stuff, just like things you don't have to say anything. You're just my neighbor, dude. Like, you don't have to engage with the guy who's taking care of my plants and complain to him about me, And after that, Brad was like, dude, I understand. Yeah. And lately there's a new, somebody got a dog a couple doors over, and the dog barks quite a bit. It doesn't really bother me that much because I'm not outside very much because I can't really use my outdoor areas because he's always out there smoking. But I'll hear him like, usually about once a day or once every other day, like when the dog is barking, just screaming, shut that dog up! Shut up! I went out on a date with a woman who lived down the street about 2 years ago, I guess it was. And I mentioned that, or she asked where on the street I lived. And I was like, that house there, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, oh, next to insert name of landlord here. And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh yeah, that guy yelled at my kid for like riding his scooter on the sidewalk or something in front of his house. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like him. That sounds like him. Yeah. And I've other people in the neighborhood, nobody really cares for him. He has not made a lot of friends in the neighborhood. So then after I got back from my road trip, it was a couple weeks later, I was hanging out on my porch with my cousin Brian, and we were drinking beers at night, some Saturday night. And, I haven't hung out socially with my landlord for, at this point, a couple years. Maybe 3, maybe 2, I don't know. I've made no indication that I have any interest in spending time with him socially. And nevertheless, he comes out on the porch while hanging out with my cousin talking, interrupts the conversation, is like, hey, can I join you? And I'm like, no, we're going inside very quickly. And he's like, oh, is this how it's going to be? He gets all mad, starts yelling, is this how it's going to be? Is this how it's going to be? I'm like, Brian, come inside. Let's go inside. So I kind of close the door, and then my cousin is freaked out because I've told him these stories, and he never understood until this moment. He's like, dude, you got to get out of here. And he's like whispering because he's afraid, because it was weird. It was creepy. And that was like another indication that, like a sign from the universe, that it was time for me to leave Columbus in my mind. That this was going downhill. This landlord-tenant thing was going downhill. Since then, he has not attempted to engage with me at all. But and I don't ever ask him to do anything in the apartment, or the house rather, unless it's something that I absolutely can't do myself and absolutely needs to be done. And so the faucet, the kitchen sink faucet, was like the little hand turning, the thing that you turn it on and off with was kind of coming off. It was when it would pop off at a certain point when I turned it the right certain way. And I thought, I can just glue it back on, but I didn't have any glue. And then I thought, well, the landlord will get mad if I do it the wrong way, because that's what he does. And so I thought, I'll just, when I'm out of town in Colorado, I'll text him and ask him to do it while I'm out of town. And so I did that, and he wrote back, okay, if there are any screws missing, I'm going to charge you for a new faucet. Which, like, what, dude? Like, what's the implication here? Like, that I took screws out of the faucet on purpose? That I broke the faucet on purpose? Like, you're the landlord. Like, your job is to fix things that break in the house. Anyway, you understand. It was just him. Like, instead of just being, a normal landlord and being, yes, of course, I'll take care of that right away, he has to be kind of a dick about it. And so then he texts me that he fixed it. And of course, once again, I had to flex. He's like, please be more gentle with these things. More things have gotten broken since you've been there than anybody else. And I'm thinking, like what, dude? Like, 2 things. The doorknob fell off the door, the 100-year-old door, the doorknob fell off, and that's pretty much it that I can think of. But whatever. It was another, pointed jab. So, long story short, I got to get out of there because it's never going to end. The dude also has a slingshot on his back porch that he shoots the deer with, which I don't really agree with, frankly. He's told me in the past that he used to shoot birds from the front porch with a friend of his with a slingshot. And I'd be like, and he was acting like it was something that was cool and funny. And I was like, that ain't cool. And I kind of, in a way feel sorry for him because I'm sure it all has to do with childhood trauma and so forth. But, this is not my issue. This is something you need to work on. And when it starts to affect me and my quality of life in the house that I'm renting from you, that's no bueno. That's no good. So yeah, I need to move out. I actually had a weird nightmare about him last night. That's, I think, why I'm talking about it. And having a nightmare about your landlord is not... I mean, I've never had that before. So that's an indication of something or other. Yeah. Okay, that's all for now. That's story time is over. There's a new neighbor. March has a new neighbor with this cabin across the street. She told me about him. And he's got I think 3 dogs over there. And yeah, they bark. They bark a lot. Every time I go outside, they bark. so I'm trying to remain very still on the porch here so as not to arouse them and make them bark. Anyway, I'm still here at the cabin here in Salida, sitting on the porch once again. It's not as windy as it was yesterday. I just spent a solid amount of time in the hot tub looking at the stars, so no complaints there. Earlier, I went to Salida proper. It's a cute little town. I've been there before, but it's a really cute little old, I think, mining town, I'm guessing. And it's kind of one of these cute little towns. It's got all these little boutiques and all that kind of thing. You know, ding ding. And, you know, like yoga studios. It's like a hippie kind of feeling, like a spiritual new age kind of town. But I think it's full of Trump supporters. Like, I think it's like, you see some bumper stickers, but I feel like there's a lot of Trump supporters here. It's a vibe. So I walked around Salida. It's really, really cute. There's like a river going through it and very pretty. And the aspen trees exploding in yellow. Really amazing. Yeah. And then I went and had dinner at this pizza place. Pizza/brewery or something. It was good. It was good. And I was sitting next to this guy at the bar, and I started talking to him. And this guy, like, he was about my age, I think. He just moved here 6 months ago from Mexico. He lived in Escondido for 13 years, doing some sort of real estate thing. I think his family owned properties on the beach or something. I don't know. Something about how Trump's tariffs made his business go downhill, so he had to move back to the States.
My mom and I own and operate 12 beachfront homes.
That's nice.
Which is great, but right now there's no rentals because people are afraid to cross the border.
Oh, I see.
The people that rent my houses are from Mexicali, they're from NorCal, they're from SoCal.
Right.
And they're mostly Mexicans, they're Latinos.
Right, and they don't want to cross the border.
They're afraid that if they cross the border, they won't be able to get back in.
It's a justifiable concern, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, so right now I'm paying all of these property taxes and federal zones taxes on all these properties on the beach that we own, and it's barely enough to cover them. And trying to sell them is almost impossible. So I'm probably going to end up losing a lot of houses and just eating shit.
Anyway, while he was living in Escondido, like, he was apparently abducted by the cartel or some cartel adjacent, thugs, and held for ransom.
Before I moved here, I was kidnapped by the cartel.
Were you really?
And I was tortured.
Really?
And they took me for $100,000 in 3 of my homes.
Okay, tell me the story.
So, and they kidnapped my stepson too, and that's what made me cough up the money. When they touched him, I was like, that's it, they're done here. And then when I left, I exposed them all.
So how did it happen though? Like, what, you were in Mexico, you're driving down the street, like what?
No, I was just a very prominent figure in the community.
Right.
And
what did they do? Did they come up with a van, or how does it happen?
No, it was at a party.
Yeah.
Just at a party, and they just said, like, get in.
And they took you where?
They took me to my house.
Uh-huh.
And in the car, they beat me savagely in my own car while they were driving my car.
How long ago was this?
This is 6 months ago.
Wow.
Not very long ago.
And that probably had played a part in your leaving Mexico, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When you get kidnapped by the cartel, I'd say it's probably time to leave.
And it wasn't like it was a cartel-related crime. It's just some knuckleheads that worked for the cartel. They were like really low on the totem pole.
Yeah.
But it didn't stop them from doing what they did.
Sure. And how much did you have to pay them?
But it was about $100,000.
Wow.
About $100,000
Wow.
to save my stepson's life. And it was mostly his fault. He was fucking around doing drugs and taking out loans from local drug dealers and telling them, "Oh, my stepdad Matt will pay you."
Oh, he was
shit like that, So
how old is he?
He's now he's 24.
Wow.
Yeah, but he started doing crystal meth when he was 13.
Great.
First time in the rehab when he was 13.
Great.
Normally, I would think that this kind of story isn't true. But it also turns out he's a very, very hardcore Christian.
Why'd you end up in Salida?
I'm a Christian missionary. I met.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I met a woman named Valerie whose sister works here, Cindy. Yeah, who's awesome. She's a fucking rock star. Yeah, Cindy's awesome.
Huh.
So anyway, I met her in Mexico doing Christian missionary trip. Well, not missionary trips, but like outreach with the church.
Yeah.
And like mostly helping people on drug addiction, people trying to stop doing prostitution, mental health issues, stuff like that. I'm a psychologist.
Okay.
So, and a Christian counselor as well. Yeah, so I know
right
that
on.
Bible.
Right on.
Yeah. So it was really fun. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, well, here I'm being chased by the cartel. So I took a house, like a safe house, basically in Ensenada for a couple days. And I just prayed to God. I was like, where am I going to go? And he put it on my heart. Hey, go contact Val and go to Salida. So I got on a train and I came to Salida.
It's a nice place to be.
And here I am.
Which surprised me because he'd been swearing up a storm and drinking like a fish, which I'm sure, there's Christians who do these things. But it was surprising in a way.
I dated a born-again Christian years ago. And crazy story, actually. In my 20s, we're still good friends, but met this born-again Christian, and at the time, and we were very much in love, and we wanted to get married, but like she couldn't marry a non-Christian. And
I won't marry a non-Christian.
I get it. So
Won't happen.
Right, and so I was like, all right, well, I want to figure out, like, if I'm gonna not marry this woman because I'm not a Christian, I at least should try to see what this is about. So I read the entire Bible, cover to cover.
Okay.
Which I think most people in the whole, even Christians,
How long did it take you?
I was living in Korea at the time, so it didn't take me as long because I was in Korea, so I had time on it. I was teaching English in Korea.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't remember how long. I wrote a blog about it too. I was like blogging about it, and it was getting, it was interesting. And ultimately came down on the side of like, it's a complicated one, but mostly it was like this idea that she always talked about, which was like, I could be a totally, like, people who were born in like a Muslim country are Muslim because they're born in Muslim countries, right? They don't have a choice. The idea that you need to choose to be a Christian in order to gain salvation is the one that I get stuck on.
To be a part of another culture and believe in something else is one thing, but knowing your history about this world and how it actually came about is more important, because Jesus is real.
Was.
No, I say is.
Okay. Meaning what?
Meaning he never died.
Okay.
He was
You mean like in the spiritual sense?
crucified and
Right.
resurrected himself.
Okay.
Therefore, he has the power over death.
Right.
Is the gospel message. So that's what I preach.
Sure.
So yeah. Anyway, so to say that, I don't know.
I guess I feel like if I am a person in a Muslim country who's a wonderful person, gives money to charity, treats all of his friends and neighbors, like all the things that Jesus preaches, practices all those, but is not a Christian, doesn't get to attain salvation because he doesn't.
That's not true.
Well, it depends on who you're talking to, because I think some people certainly believe that.
There's a scripture that says it would be better for you to have never known than to know and to refute.
And see, this is part of my issue too, is that these interpretations get me all bugaboo too, because everybody's got their own little way of deciding what.
So in Hebrews 6, it says basically you're re-crucifying Christ is what a lot of Christians will point to in this regard. Because I'm trying to make it simple without getting into a theological.
No, I'm listening, dude. I'm
So this is what I believe. You be a good person. You just go be a good person. Amplify your heart. If you do figure out one day to put your heart on Christ, he will amplify it even more. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm just saying it's way better with Christ.
Fair enough.
And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. No judgment here. I'm not the judge.
Anyway, long story short, the woman ended up that I was dating. I moved to Korea to teach English. She moved to Israel to go to school for religious studies. Mm-hmm. And the religious studies, I think, really, when she started to dig into get her master's in it, and she was digging into it too much, she started to question it. Then she fell in love with a Jewish man and moved to New York City, converted to Judaism, and now she's a Jew.
Okay.
I mean, everybody's got a different path,
Once I think he realized that I wasn't like that, I'm just open to hearing your whatever you want to say. I'm not going to judge him. He just started going with the God stuff.
What I believe is that when Jesus died on the cross, he took all man's sin, so therefore the law has been fulfilled. So therefore, rather than living under God's law, I don't live under God's law, I live under God's grace.
Right.
And so therefore, every day that I get up, I pray. I'm not going to be perfect ever, but God will slowly change me over time, which he has done in my life, to become a better person, be more meaningful in my life, and impressionable in the people that I talk to.
Right.
Especially people that are lost. 'Cause let's face it, there's a lot of people that are lost here in this life.
Absolutely.
They're looking for answers and they just don't know.
Absolutely, and I would argue that there's a lot of different answers, and I think Jesus could be one of them for a lot of people. I think that mindfulness could be one for a lot of people. Just finding yourself the ability to be present in the present moment is a big part of, in my opinion. I mean, that's part actually in the Bible as well. It's talking about that. Buddhist as well.
Well, there's a few scriptures that speak out to me, but like I always have to ask this question: it's like, if you don't believe in everlasting life, then what is the purpose of living?
I mean, that's a valid question, but like,
There is no purpose to it other than just to go from point A to point B and you're done. Then why do you care what I believe in? I get attacked by a lot of people who don't believe, and I always ask them that.
I never understand.
I said, why do you care if I believe in Jesus?
That doesn't really.
Does that make any sense?
Unless you're trying to lay it on them real hard. But
no, I don't do that.
You don't seem to
I'm
be
not
a guy.
like that.
No, you don't seem to be like that.
No, it's everyone's choice.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen when I move on to the next part of existence, whatever that is. I have no idea, and I'm actually comfortable with that.
Yeah. And what kind of feelings does that bring you, though?
What do you mean?
Well, how do you feel knowing in your thoughts, in your mind, knowing that there's nothing?
I don't know that there's nothing. I don't know. I think there definitely could be something. I think there's a lot of science that comes out about consciousness.
Do you have hope? Is there hopefulness in there? Is there any kind of hope at all towards something greater?
Yeah, it'd be great that there was.
See, that sounds so sad to me. There's nothing there.
I mean, I would say that everybody's got to get through this life somehow, and I think that there's. I'm honestly, I don't feel sad about it. I think that there's a possibility that this is not all there is. I don't know that it's a Jesus-based thing or a religion-based thing. I think it could be just a consciousness-based thing in which our consciousness continues to exist in some form. I don't know.
You said you read the Bible, though.
I did, yeah.
And what version did
quite
you
boring.
read?
I think it was New American.
New American?
Was that the one? Yeah.
North American Standard?
No, I think it was. I have to look. I still have it.
NASB?
Yeah. Some of that was boring.
Well, it depends on what you're reading, yeah.
Numbers, boy. That was
Numbers? Yeah. I just finished Deuteronomy, so that's a good one.
New Testament's much better than the Old Testament.
Well, I always tell people when they read the Bible, you should never start out with the Old Testament.
Well, I wanted to read from cover to cover, so I want to get the whole story.
You won't understand it. You need to start from New Testament and then go back.
Well, I had a woman trying to explain parts of it to me,
Yeah. There's a right way of reading it to make it make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you read it from cover to cover, it won't make any sense.
And it wasn't like bad. It was like we had an interesting conversation. But at one point he did say that he doesn't wear a helmet when he rides his bike. I said something, we were talking about skiing. And I said,
nobody wore helmets back then. It's so crazy to me to think back when I used to ski when I was a kid.
I'm not going to wear a helmet now.
You should wear a helmet, dude.
Why?
Because it's like so dangerous. You can go die all the time.
Yeah, right. I used to ride motorcycles in the Baja 500 and 1000 with no helmet on.
That seems reckless.
Yeah, but I finished.
Yeah, you didn't die, but I mean, I'm just saying. It seems reckless.
I don't know. Even in the Army, when they handed me a Kevlar, I wouldn't wear that shit.
Why not?
Because I believe that if God wants to take me out, then that's what's going to happen.
I thought
and there was nothing you could do to stop me.
It might be the God thing.
Yeah, well, yeah. And I'm here, so,
Yeah, no
after 4 tours, I'm okay.
God's steering the ship. So if God's going to take him, God's going to take him whether he's wearing a helmet or not, I guess. That's what it sounded like, which seems like flawed reasoning to me. But, much of Christianity does rely on some semblance of flawed reasoning, doesn't it? You need faith, right? Reasoning isn't what, yeah. But yeah, and at one point he was like, well, what are you even living for? Like, he's like, what's the point of your life? Because the point of his life is to serve Jesus and get to the afterlife, whatever.
When you look at the religions, there's a lot of the similar ideas kind of flow through a lot of the religions.
There's one difference. You know what that is?
Jesus.
Well, yes, but those religions teach you that you have the possibility to do it on your own, and that's a lie.
Well, to you.
Well, it's a lie because without God, you can't do anything.
To you.
Okay, but again, you don't believe in anything, so...
I mean, it's not that I don't believe in anything. I believe in a lot of things. I just don't believe in...
But then what is the purpose of life, is my point.
The purpose of life is to,
To create more people who don't believe in anything?
What do you think the purpose of life is? Just to follow God's will and...
To live right by God, yeah. To live be upright. Upright.
I feel like I'm extremely...
You seem like it. Yeah, yeah,
right.
You're upright.
And I don't have a God.
Yeah,
So
fine.
I mean, I think that... I like that sound. I appreciate the fact that we can have this conversation without getting angry. Without getting angry.
Straight up, man.
Yeah.
Right on.
For sure. Because I respect your beliefs, and I appreciate that you respect my beliefs. Although I don't like when you say I believe in nothing, because that's not true at all.
But then what do you believe in? That's what I'm getting at.
What do you mean? I believe in love. I believe in being good to my fellow citizens. I believe in volunteering and helping out the people who are less privileged. I believe in being a good human being.
But for what purpose?
I don't need a purpose for it. I do it because I think that that's the right thing to do in my life.
See, and I believe that that's the way God made us.
But if you didn't have God, then do you think that you wouldn't be a good person because you don't?
No, even if I didn't have God, I would still do the right thing anyway because that's how I'm made.
Right.
Yeah.
And frankly, I'm just going to play the conversation because I recorded the conversation, or at least some of it surreptitiously, which I've done before, I know, and I do realize it is somewhat morally questionable. I acknowledge that, but I'm also saying that I'm cutting his name out. I'm not going to use his name. And I feel like, what are the odds that somebody's just going to recognize, who's going to listen to the podcast? And yeah, I don't know.
My grandmother was kidnapped
country.
by German soldiers from the Ukraine when she was pregnant with my mother.
Wow.
And she was born in Bergen-Belsen. And my grandmother made amazing sugar cookies, and that's why Hitler moved them to Hamburg.
No kidding.
So my grandmother made sugar cookies for Hitler. And that's the only reason I'm alive.
My grandmother
Because
made
if she didn't make good sugar cookies, I wouldn't fucking be here, man.
The best. That's the story. My grandmother made sugar cookies for Hitler, and as a result, I exist. That's funny. I love that. My grandmother made sugar cookies for Hitler. It sounds like almost a punchline to a joke. My grandmother made... You didn't have the sugar cookies? Did you ever make them for you?
Oh yeah, I know the recipe.
They were
I can
good?
make them.
You got the recipes for Hitler's sugar cookies?
Oh, of course I do.
You should.
I'm my grandmother's favorite.
You could sell them to some white
I can make pirohe, which is like what you call pierogies.
Yeah.
If you've got opinions about the morality of this surreptitious recording, please email me at 1fjeffpod@gmail.com. I would honestly, either if you think it's terrible, then let me know, because I'm genuinely curious. I feel like it's kind of on the boundary between, I don't know, I feel okay about it. And maybe that's just because it's good content. At least I think it is. And that felt kind of gross to say.
Were you raised Catholic or Christian? How did you find it?
Sorta. I didn't go to church when I was a kid. No, this is something I just found out by sitting down and reading.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How old were you when that happened?
When I started reading?
Or when you decided you found Jesus, wherever you're at now?
Jesus has always been a part of my life. Ever since I was a kid, I always knew he was there. But I didn't really actually choose him in my life until I was probably about 20.
Was there anything in particular that happened when you were 20 that caused that to happen?
Yeah, I was in jail.
And what were you in jail for?
Crime I didn't commit, actually, a military crime.
Oh, were you in the
military? I was in the Army. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What did you do in the Army?
I was a UH-60 crew chief. I was a sniper on a Black Hawk.
Did you
I
go
was
to
an Army Ranger.
Iraq or anything?
Yep, I did 2 tours in Iraq and 2 in Afghanistan.
Wow. How was that?
It sucked. I came back with all my digits, though. Little woohoo in the head, you know.
Sure.
10 years of therapy.
Yeah, I have a good friend who was in the Army.
That's why I became a psychologist.
And now he's working. I have a friend who was in Iraq. He was, I think it wasn't the Army. It was, maybe it was the Army, I forget. But he is now working to like help mental health because he was like, he got back.
That's
And he
awesome.
was a mess. And
That's
he was
awesome,
like,
yeah.
nobody's here to help me. Nobody's around. I mean, there's
That's how
nothing.
it was when I was out.
And it's
Nobody
still
gave a
it's
shit.
still not great. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of the things that America gets involved in internationally, but like if you're going to choose to do that, then you should be getting all the prizes, all of it, all the mental health care you need, because that's going to screw you up for years.
Well, I was delivered out of jail. My ETS date was August 11th, 2001.
What was the crime that you didn't do?
They said I struck my commanding officer.
Oh, yeah.
I never touched him.
Right.
So I did 9 months in Jefferson
9
County
months.
Jail
Jesus.
up in upstate New York, and 20-degree temperature. It was pretty great. And then I got out, and I was just like,
Yeah, they'll do it. Yeah.
fuck it.
Yeah, never been in jail. But you've had quite a life.
Yeah, that was my only time being in jail, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
That's
was
good.
it.
Maybe it's just because it feels like it's interesting to have those in the podcast, because that's what the podcast is kind of about, is connections and, making connections with people that you would never meet ever, and all these things. So I feel like that maybe just like the ends justify the means in this case. I don't know. Let me know. 1fjeffpod@gmail.com.
Interesting. The funny thing is, it's like when I started talking to you, I never in a million years thought you were a Christian like that.
No.
And I don't. It's fascinating. This again, once again, it's like every time. This has been my life lately. It's like I start talking to people in bars, and the most interesting people ever. Like, yeah, it's just strange.
I love hanging out at bars. I think it's fun.
I love just meeting random people. Is what I like. Just having random conversations with random people.
Me too.
And learning their
Yeah.
stories. Yeah.
I think it's awesome. What did you say your name was?
Jeff. One
Matthew.
F.
Matthew.
One F. Jeff.
Matthew. Yeah. Yeah, it was a pleasure, man.
Yeah, one F. Jeff.
My name Jeff.
I took an F off.
My name.
You're doing Borat. I get it.
Anyway, I'm going on Chris Ryan's podcast tomorrow morning very early. Well, not very early, but I have to get there at like 9 or 9:30, so I have to leave at like, what time am I leaving? 8? I'm leaving at 8. So yeah, I got to get up early, which actually I'm okay with because I'll get to see the sunrise, which is something that March said I should do. So it's like a 2-for-1. It's quite peaceful out here right now. Yeah, you should see the stars tonight. There's the hot tub turning on. So, yeah, that's my cue to leave. So it's Tuesday afternoon, and I just got back from Crestone and doing an interview on Chris Ryan's podcast, Tangentially Speaking. It went well, I think. I've been listening to his podcast for probably six years now, and you develop this parasocial relationship with this person that you listen to in your ears all the time. And then through some bizarre combination of factors, you end up going on his podcast. And it was kind of surreal, to be honest. Even like seeing his house, like where he does his podcast and all that. Yeah. And yeah, we did the podcast outside. We sat outside looking at the mountains and the valley and talked for about an hour. And then we hung out and talked for another 2 hours or so. He's a super interesting guy. Many, many stories. I think in the podcast maybe he did more of the talking than I did, but we'll see. I don't remember that well. But anyway, yeah, truly a unique experience. And, again, grateful that I was able to, that life did what it did and allowed me to have this this experience. I don't know. I'm still a little bit baffled by the whole thing, And now I'm back in March's cabin, and I'm going to pack up my stuff and head back to Colorado Springs to her place in, a little bit here. And then I fly out tomorrow. So, what else? Oh, Crestone. I'd been there before, and I talked about it before, but I didn't really get an idea of how truly remote Crestone is. It's in the middle of nowhere. The closest grocery store, real grocery store, is an hour away here in Salida. There's another one, I guess, the other way. And so land is very cheap there because it's so remote. And there's no building codes. It's like the only county in the entire state that has no building codes. So people build kind of whatever. And Chris is expanding his house, and you don't need to get, permits or anything because there's no building codes. I guess maybe you need permits. I don't know. And as a result, everybody there is apparently a construction person because there's no codes, so anybody can say they are. Also, the only city in the United States that allows open-air cremations. There's a funeral pyre that I tried to find. Chris said I should check it out on my way out, and I found the sign, and I went down the road, but I couldn't find it, which was weird. But yeah, they do open-air cremations on a funeral pyre thing. I guess only like 50 or 60 people have done it, but that's interesting.
The deceased are laid in a simple shroud, placed on a wooden stretcher atop a hearth of juniper logs, and ceremonially burned in an outdoor cremation. The ritual is non-sectarian, allowing family and friends to participate in lighting the fire or offering prayers, and takes place in the quiet desert landscape at the foot of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. It's available only to residents of Saguache County and remains one of the most unique and spiritual approaches to death in the country.
Very interesting, weird town. I like the vibe, but the remoteness might be something. Just to get groceries, you got to plan real well if the grocery store is an hour away. Like, you can't just go to the store and get basil. You got to have stuff ready. And there's not really any restaurants, so it's just like, yeah. But yeah, the drive-in was beautiful. The drive-out was beautiful. I mean, the mountains everywhere. You drive through Mountain Pass. Colorado's stunning. What an amazing day. I'll take today. And it's only halfway over, so who knows what might happen. So many things could still happen. Also been thinking about what a year this has been. If you would have described my 2025 to me at the end of 2024, I would have told you were crazy. But here we are. Here I am. Here it is. This is it. Life can be amazing. You just have to get out of your comfort zone. Take advantage of your freedom when you have it. Try to create freedom when you can. You can make the life that you want to have for yourself. That's what I've learned this year. Until you have to get a job, and then maybe things change. But yeah, the podcast keeps giving. It's Tuesday night. It's pretty late. I'm back in Colorado Springs at March's house. I drove back from Salida this afternoon. It was about 2.5 hour drive. It was a lot of driving today, so I'm pretty tired. I'll sleep well tonight. But, I mean, it was a beautiful drive. Yellow aspen leaves popping below like the mountains. It's very Colorado. It's what I love about Colorado. I mean, there's many things, but something about the mountains, I don't know, it gets me. But again, I could be at the ocean. I'll be saying the same thing. Something about the ocean gets me. I need majesty, right? Maybe that's it. Maybe it's the majesty of the mountains. I guess the ocean isn't so majestic in as much as it's like more a reflection of life, right? And that gets me. Anyway, I'm going back to Columbus tomorrow. And this has been a good trip. It's been a quick trip, but it's felt like it's been quite long because that's what travel does. It feels like I've been gone for like at least a week, but it's only been like 4 days. It's crazy. I was talking to Marsh just tonight. We were having some wine and talking about, growing into middle age and seeing friends kind of drift away, losing friends, and really, I think in middle age is where you really come to understand what doing the work and emotional maturity and all these important things that we should be doing really kind of come into play, because I think middle age, at least in as much as I've experienced it, is kind of a great big reckoning with the reality of your own mortality. I don't know who was it who said the quote that I love. we live two lives. The second begins when we realize we only have one. And I think middle age is kind of when you realize. And I think that's when you can kind of like make a choice about how you're going to do the rest of your one precious life. And I think that there's many ways that people can deal with that shit and do deal with that shit. And I don't know, I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, but I feel like this year has been a big year for me in coming to terms with the reality of my mortality, and also coming to terms with or understanding the need for doing the work. And I think that the friends that I've kept over the years are, to a large extent, the ones that have done the work, or are trying to at least continue to work on themselves, even as the reality of mortality kind of sets in. So I feel like that sounds morbid, but it's not. And also, I've talked a lot on this podcast. Well, I mean, maybe not a lot, but enough during the road trip episodes about people and friends that I've lost in my life, particularly over the last 5 years. And in some cases, I don't know why, right? Why I've lost them. In some cases, I do. But I kind of think that, well, I'm not suggesting that nothing of it has to do with me. I think that a large part of it has to do with them and where they are. I think a lot of people stop growing at a certain point. And certainly I'm no stranger to this. I've gotten stuck in my ways. I've gotten very comfortable with certain habits and things like that. And I think a lot of people just kind of just accept this and become their habits. Become the version of themselves that is the easiest version of themselves, perhaps. The most frictionless version of themselves, maybe. And I'm certainly privileged in a way to have time to think about these things, and I'm not denying that. This year has been one of enjoying my life and not having to work very much, which has been a blessing and a godsend, really. But, I've really tried to use this year to make myself better. I've been given time this year. And I feel like I'm not, maybe for the first time in my life, but I'm not squandering that time. I'm taking that time and I am fucking using it. I'm getting out of my comfort zone. I'm letting go of so much shit that's happened in my past. I'm trying not to hang on to what I'd like the future to look like. And I'm just letting go and trying to live the life and do the things that will bring me joy and will make me a better person. And today was kind of a culmination of that, of the idea that this work, this year that I've had, the way that I've used this year, has all been kind of it's all worked out. The universe is giving back. The universe is seeing what I'm doing here and it's saying, here you go. You're on the right path, Jeff. So here's some good stuff. Anyway, I'm taking a win today. I'm taking a long-term win. And I'm feeling good about it. And there you have it. That was Colorado. How was it for you? Was it good? I hope it was good for you. It was great for me. If it was good for you, and even if it wasn't, you gotta rate, subscribe, and review. You gotta rate, subscribe, and review. If you're wondering what you gotta do, you gotta like, rate, subscribe, and review. That was a dolphin. Wow. By episode like 50, I'm gonna have a real hit on my hands. So just, stay tuned. Hang in there with me. I'm concerned now that people are not gonna like, rate, subscribe, and review because that song is not their favorite. But why not? And why not? It's a good song. I like it anyway. It's short, sweet, and to the point, and it's better than just saying the words every fucking time, right? It's better. Anyway. Jeff, the singing with like, rate, subscribe, and review, it's not my favorite thing. Oh, well, it's not for everyone. I don't think anybody likes it, Jeff. Oh, well, if you do a survey, you can bring the results to me and prove it. But until then, I'm going to keep doing that song. I'm going to keep honing it, making it better and better until it's a number one hit on Spotify or Apple Music. Maybe both. Maybe Taylor Swift will sing it. That'd be an unexpected turn of events. I started a podcast, and in the podcast, I started singing this like, rate, subscribe, and review song. And then Taylor Swift heard it, and she sent me an email at onefjeffpod@gmail.com and asked me if she could perform it on her next tour, the Eras Tour Part 8 or something like that. And I said, well, Taylor, I'm going to need a good chunk of money for you to do that. And she said, well, what if I just came on the podcast? I said, you'll have to do that too, but I'll still need some more money. It is a hit. LRSR, Lurser. That's what it's called, Lurser, Taylor Swift's new hit. If you are still listening, I truly appreciate you. If you're not listening, you're not listening, so I can't say anything to you. So I shouldn't even preface that with, if you are still listening, because you are still listening. But I do appreciate you because, you can see on the metrics how long people listen. And some people don't listen for very long at all, particularly on YouTube, which makes me think I need maybe explosions at the beginning or some exciting thing. Like in this one, maybe the, Hitler sugar cookie story. That'll grab people. I am a little concerned that the Hitler sugar cookie story may end up getting me de-algorithmed or something, because I don't think that the algorithms particularly like the word Hitler these days. Not that they ever have, but I don't want this podcast to end up in some sort of a white supremacist podcast group or something, just because I have a story about somebody whose grandmother made cookies for Hitler against her own will. So that's a big part of it. She didn't do it because she liked Hitler. She did it because she had to make sugar cookies for Hitler. But I don't think the algorithm is able to really discern that nuance. But if you are the algorithm, I hope you will discern the nuance, because I feel like I should say this is not a pro-Hitler podcast. This is a pro-sugar cookie podcast, but an anti-Hitler podcast. How about that? Okay, my friends, I hope you're all thriving in spite of the fact that the White House is literally being torn down. Woo-hoo! Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything is fine. Okay, everyone, close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. Hold it. Let that shit go. I will see you next week.
Very good, Jeffrey.